The silence of the Jordanian desert is not a hollow silence. It is a silence heavy with the weight of a memory that the world has tried to either sensationalize or sanitize. When we speak of Sodom in the year 2000 BC, we are stepping into a landscape that has been obscured by centuries of moralistic shorthand and modern skepticism. The common imagination often reduces the destruction of the cities of the plain to a mere fable or a simplistic cautionary tale about a single category of vice. However, as one who has spent decades analyzing the textual evidence and the historical context of the Middle Bronze Age, I can tell you that the truth of Sodom is far more complex, far more chilling, and far more relevant than the popular myths suggest. To understand what the Bible assumes its readers already knew, what it doesn't explicitly spell out in every verse, is to uncover a civilization at the height of its power, a geopolitical juggernaut that collapsed not just because of a singular act, but because of a systemic, profound internal rot that invited a cosmic intervention. There is a pervasive confusion that Sodom was a small, isolated village of primitive people. On the contrary, the archaeological and historical data for the Jordan Disk, or the Kikar, suggests that around 2000 BC, this region was a thriving hub of trade and agricultural abundance. This was a well-watered paradise, as the book of Genesis describes it, comparable to the Garden of the Lord or the land of Egypt. The hidden truth is that Sodom was a sophisticated city-state, a bastion of Middle Bronze Age wealth that sat at the crossroads of major trade routes. Its sin was not born of desperation or ignorance, but of the arrogance that comes with unchecked prosperity. When we look at the manuscripts and the historical layers, we see a society that had perfected the art of exclusion and the exploitation of the vulnerable. The fire that fell was not just a response to personal immorality. It was a judgment upon a culture that had declared its independence from the moral order of the Creator. To grasp the depth of the tragedy, we must look at the foundation of the city's economy. The abundance of bread and the idleness that the prophet Ezekiel later identified as the iniquity of Sodom were not metaphors. They were the socio-economic realities of 2000 BC. The fertile soil of the Jordan Valley provided a surplus that allowed for a leisure class that had forgotten the necessity of labor and the sanctity of the stranger. In the ancient Near East, the kitchen and the table were the primary sites of covenantal safety, yet Sodom turned the table into a site of predation. The hidden truth that the narrative implies is that Sodom had systematically dismantled the laws of hospitality, the philoxenia, that were the only thing preventing ancient societies from descending into chaos. By the time the two messengers arrived at Lot's gate, the city had already crossed a threshold where the stranger was no longer seen as a guest to be protected, but as an object to be consumed. Theologically, we must grapple with the nature of the cry that reached the ears of God. The Hebrew word is zaka, a specific term used for the cry of the oppressed, the scream of the victim seeking legal redress in the face of an unjust system. This was not a vague dissatisfaction, it was a forensic signal of a broken social contract. When the Bible tells us that God went down to see if they had done altogether according to the cry, it is describing a divine investigation of a legal nature. The hidden reality is that Sodom was under trial long before the first spark touched the ground. The negotiation between Abraham and the Lord in Genesis 18 is an extraordinary window into the divine mind. It reveals a God who is unwilling to destroy the righteous with the wicked, but also a God who recognizes that a society without a remnant of 10 righteous people has lost its structural integrity. Sodom was a building whose foundations had turned to sand. The judgment was simply the inevitable collapse of a structure that could no longer support its own weight. Historically, the collapse of the cities in the Kikar corresponds with a sudden and violent interruption in the Middle Bronze Age II period. While I am a theologian and not an archaeologist, I cannot ignore the findings at sites like Tal el-Hammam, where evidence of a high-heat event, pottery melted into glass, scorched earth, and a sudden abandonment of a once fertile region, matches the biblical record with haunting precision. The hidden truth revealed by the soil is that the catastrophe was so absolute that the region remained uninhabited for centuries. This was not a localized fire. It was a thermal event of such magnitude that it sanitized the landscape. For the believer, this history is not a curiosity. It is a confirmation that the moral and the physical are not separate categories. The fire of 2000 BC was the physical manifestation of a spiritual reality that had already scorched the hearts of the people of Sodom. We must also analyze the character of Lot, who is often misunderstood as a purely righteous man caught in a bad situation. The manuscripts suggest a more complex picture. Lot pitched his tent towards Sodom before he eventually moved into the city itself. He became an elder at the gate, a position of legal authority. The hidden truth of Lot is the truth of compromise. He sought the prosperity of the plain while trying to maintain the faith of his uncle Abraham, but the environment eventually eroded his moral clarity. His attempt to protect the guests by offering his daughters is one of the most disturbing moments in Scripture, reflecting a man whose moral compass had been spinning in the magnetic field of Sodom for too long. He was righteous, as the later epistles tell us, but it was a vexed righteousness, a faith that was barely treading water in a sea of depravity. This serves as a sober warning to the mature Christian. You cannot inhabit the structures of Sodom without eventually breathing its air. The destruction itself, brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven, is a reversal of the creation narrative. In the beginning, God brought order out of chaos. In Sodom, He returned a chaotic society to the dust from which it came. The hidden truth here is the concept of uncreation. When a society reaches a point where it no longer reflects the image of God, where its ancient work is the destruction of the innocent and the exaltation of the self, it invites a return to the void. This is intellectually demanding because it forces us to confront a God who is not just a grandfatherly figure of love, but a consuming fire of justice. A shallow faith cannot carry the weight of Sodom's ruins. We must understand that God's love for the world necessitates His hatred of that which destroys the world. To love the victim is to judge the predator. Furthermore, we must look at the geography of the aftermath. The Dead Sea, the lowest point on earth, stands as a permanent geographic scar where the cities of the plain once flourished. It is a place where nothing grows, where the water is too salt for life, and where the air is thick with the scent of minerals. This is the hidden truth that the earth itself reveals. The judgment of Sodom was not an event that passed, but a reality that remains. Every time we look at that desolate landscape, we are reminded of the fragility of civilization and the necessity of a moral foundation. The Bible doesn't tell us how long the smoke rose over the plain, but it tells us that Abraham looked out and saw it. He saw the end of a world that had chosen its own path. In our contemporary culture, we are often tempted to look for hidden truths in the form of secret documents or suppressed gospels. But the real hidden truth of Sodom is found in the plain reading of the text, combined with a deep understanding of the ancient world. It is the truth that pride, luxury, and a disregard for the poor are the precursors to judgment. It is the truth that a society can appear prosperous and powerful while it is actually on the brink of extinction. It is the truth that God's patience is long but not infinite. We must think carefully if we want to believe faithfully. If we ignore the lesson of 2000 BC, we do so at our own peril. Sodom is not a myth of the past, it is a blueprint of a recurring human tragedy. I want to pause and ask you, the viewer, to consider the cries that go up from our own world today. If we were to be audited by the same divine investigation that visited the Jordan Plain, what would be found in our gates? Are we people of the table or people of the predation? The maturity of our faith is measured by our willingness to ask these hard questions. The theology of Sodom is not a cold analysis of a dead city. It is a burning question directed at our own hearts. Do we value the stranger? Do we protect the vulnerable? Or have we, like Lot, pitched our tent so close to the allure of the plain that we can no longer see the fire on the horizon? The historical expansion of the Sodom narrative into the broader biblical canon is also revealing. From the prophets to the teachings of Christ Himself, Sodom is used as the gold standard for judgment. Yet Christ makes a shocking statement. It will be more tolerable for Sodom on the day of judgment than for the cities that saw His miracles and did not repent. This is an intellectually demanding pivot. It suggests that the hidden truth of judgment is not based solely on the magnitude of the sin, but on the rejection of the light. Sodom had the law of nature and the witness of conscience. The cities of Galilee had the Son of God in their streets. This elevates the responsibility of the believer to a terrifying level. We who have the full manuscript of God's revelation are held to a standard that makes the fire of 2000 BC look like a prelude. We must also be intellectually honest about the archaeological silence that often frustrates skeptics. For years, the lack of a clear Sodom on a map led many to dismiss the account as legend. But the discovery of the Middle Bronze Age collapse in the Jordan Valley has changed the conversation. The hidden truth was buried under layers of silt and salt, waiting for a generation that had the tools to find it. This reminds us that our lack of evidence is not evidence of lack. The biblical record has a habit of being vindicated by the shovel, provided we are patient enough to wait for the dust to settle. However, our faith should not depend on the next archaeological dig. Our faith is built on the testimony of the Word, which has proven its depth and its durability over millennia. The doctrine of the remnant is perhaps the most vital takeaway from the Sodom account. The fact that 10 righteous people could have saved a city of thousands is a profound statement about the power of a faithful minority. The hidden truth is that the world is often preserved by the prayers and the presence of those whom the world ignores. Abraham's intercession was not a failure because the city was destroyed. It was a revelation of the mercy of God. It showed that God is looking for any reason to spare, any spark of righteousness to fan into a flame. The tragedy of Sodom is not that God was too harsh, but that the city was too empty. There was no one left to hold back the tide of judgment. As we look back at 2000 BC, we see a mirror of the human condition. We see the same patterns of greed, the same thirst for autonomy, and the same disregard for the sacred. The hidden truth is that we are not so different from the people of the plain. Our technology has changed, our kitchens are more advanced, and our cities are larger, but the heart remains the same. The ancient work of redemption is still necessary. The work of Christ in 33 AD is the only answer to the judgment of 2000 BC. On the cross, He took the fire and brimstone that we deserved, offering us a way out of the city of destruction and into the kingdom of light. This is the ultimate hidden truth that the entire biblical narrative points toward. I encourage you to leave your reflections in the comments. This is a difficult theme, one that requires us to set aside our modern sensibilities and listen to the gravity of the ancient word. How do you see the iniquity of Sodom manifesting in our contemporary culture? How does the intercession of Abraham shape your own prayer life for a world in crisis? These are the dialogues that build a mature, thinking faith. We are not here for sensationalism. We are here for the truth, even when it is uncomfortable, especially when it is uncomfortable. The year 2000 BC may seem like an eternity ago, but the smoke of Sodom still hangs in the air of our theology. It warns us that the world is not a playground, but a moral arena. It tells us that our choices matter, that our societies have a soul, and that God is not a distant observer, but a participant in our history. Let us move forward with a sense of responsibility and a commitment to the depth of our calling. We are the salt of the earth, and if we lose our savor, we are no better than the salt that encrusted the plains of the Jordan. I invite you to subscribe and continue this exploration of the deep things of God. There is so much more to discuss regarding the history of the patriarchs, the archaeology of the Levant, and the theological foundations of our faith. We will continue to seek the truth with discipline, reverence, and intellectual honesty. Thank you for your time, your attention, and your willingness to think deeply. May you walk in the light of the truth, and may your heart be found righteous in the eyes of the one who sees all things. The ancient work continues in us, as we strive to be a people who hold back the darkness and point the way to the dawn. The intellectual rigor required to study Sodom is not just about dates and pottery shards. It is about the courage to look into the abyss of human failure and still see the hand of divine providence. The manuscripts are clear, the history is solid, and the spiritual implications are eternal. Let us not be a people who are easily swayed by the hidden truth of conspiracists, but a people who are grounded in the revealed truth of the Scriptures. The fire has fallen, the smoke has cleared, but the lesson remains for all who have eyes to see. Sodom was destroyed so that we might be saved from a similar end. Let us take that salvation seriously, and let us live lives that reflect the holiness of the God who judged the plain and redeemed the world. In the final analysis, the story of Sodom is a story about the presence of God. He is present in the cry of the oppressed. He is present in the investigation of the judge. He is present in the intercession of the prophet. And He is present in the execution of the sentence. The hidden truth is that there is no place where He is not. Even in the heart of a wicked city, His light is the standard by which the darkness is measured. May we be found in the light, and may our lives be a testament to the grace that found Lot in the city and Abraham on the mountain. This is the reality of our faith, a faith that is as old as the hills of Hebron and as fresh as the morning mercies of our God. The significance of 2000 BC is found in its ability to strip away our illusions of safety and force us to look at the foundations of our lives. If the most fertile valley on earth could become a wasteland, then nothing we build with our own hands is permanent. Only the kingdom that cannot be shaken will remain. Let us invest our lives in that kingdom, serving the King with fear and trembling, but also with a joy that transcends the judgments of this world. The ancient work is finished, the record is written, and the call is to wisdom. Let us be wise, let us be faithful, and let us be mature.